What's up? This is EJ Stewart.
What if I dropped 40 days, 40 nights?
All you are your words. If there's anything you learned about me, I'm going to keep it 100 with you.
My skill shot will hold for your city for 40 days.
Rest in peace to all my ops.
Let's go!
Let's go is right. What's up? This is EJ Stewart. You are watching 40 Days in Counting, where I do 2 live stream shows per day. 1, 6 p.m. Tuesday, 1 Friday, 8 a.m. This, of course, is the Friday morning version. We got plenty to get to on this show, including a massive trade in the NBA that sends one of the league's premier point guards to Minnesota. We have a big development happening in New York with the defending champs and one key member of that team that apparently will not be continuing with that team. And we will also discuss, obviously, what's going on in the world of soccer. We got the World Cup going on. U.S. take a loss. The Mets cratering. Supergirl stuff. So we got plenty of stuff to get to, man. I'm excited about this show. 40 Days and Counting again. Streaming live, multiple spots. I was just relayed that apparently I'm not streaming on X anymore, which is unfortunate. I don't know why that happened. Well, I kind of have a clue why that happened, but it hasn't happened in a while. But streaming live still other spots though. So you want to catch me on YouTube, New Generation Media. You want to catch me on Instagram, Action EJ. You want to catch me on Buzzer, EJ205 Prep. We're streaming all those spots again. Instagram, Twitter, unfortunately, crapped out on me, which is annoying and unfortunate. But them is the break sometimes. We're gonna continue the show. We're gonna keep it rocking. This is gonna be a fun one because again, we got a lot to talk about this morning, and I want to get it right started off with what's going on in the NBA. Let's talk about the big trade that happened yesterday, which was the Timberwolves acquiring LaMelo Ball. So they trade for the Charlotte Hornets starting point guard. In return, the Hornets get Naz Reid. They also get some first-round pick swaps. They also get some second-round picks in this trade for LaMelo Ball. Now, listen, LaMelo Ball last year had probably one of his best years when it comes to, I think, winning impact. He's someone that's always put up numbers, but he is someone that has had the lament of having being a losing player. That has been definitely the storybook on LaMelo's career for a lot of his career. Someone who's been injury prone. Last year was a year where you couldn't say that about him. When he was on the court, he had one of the best plus minuses in all of the NBA. His impact on the team's offense, which if you watched the Hornets last year, second half of the season, they were arguably the best offense in the NBA. He was a large part of that, and they were this close to making the playoffs, obviously. After winning a very competitive playing game, they obviously got blown out in the final playing game, but nonetheless, we're one game away from making the playoffs, and I thought, just like the Magic gave the Pistons a run, I thought the Hornets would have given the Pistons a serious run had they made the playoffs. So LaMelo Ball is coming off a very good year. And with all of those things being the truth about how his season went, the Hornets still said, pack your bags and head over to Minnesota because we're going to move on. So that says a lot to me. Number one, is there's clearly to me a concern perhaps that what you saw from LaMelo Ball from a team playing team ball concept is not something that you can really expect moving forward. And maybe it also says something that whatever personality differences that he has with the team or the front office is not something they want to continue despite what was really good on-court production. So LaMelo Ball is not going to be everybody's cup of tea. On the flip side, I think if you're the T-Wolves, this is a team that has seen for years now that they had a massive hole at point guard, and they were trying to work around it. Like they had Conley a couple years ago, and he was clearly towards the end. He was on the team last year too, but he kind of took a much lesser role in the team. They tried the Conley thing last year, 2 years ago, it didn't work. Last year they tried to essentially play without a point guard. Dante DiVincenzo was essentially their starting point guard. That also didn't seem to work out very well. They clearly had a ceiling playing the way they were trying to play, which was having those, big bodies in the paint. Anthony Edwards kind of being everything on the perimeter and just trying to put a bunch of shooters around him. It wasn't working. They weren't able to, as close as they got, get into the conference finals twice. They weren't really seriously close to cracking, a trip to the NBA finals or winning a championship. So this is a complete identity shift for the T-Wolves. Because not only did they trade Naz Reid, they also traded Julius Randle, which we talked about earlier in the week. So Randle's gone, and Naz Reid is now gone. And now this is a team that suddenly, who used to pummel you with size and pummel you with their physicality in the paint, no longer shares that physicality. This is a team that's probably going to move Jaden McDaniels probably to the 4 and will play a much smaller group. This is a team that just signed Ayo Dosunmu, who had a 40-point game in the NBA playoffs and played really well for the T-Wolves after being traded from the Chicago Bulls. He's been one of my favorite role players in the NBA, so I'm a big Ayo Dosunmu fan. And you kind of thought that they were maybe signing him to that 5-year, $112 million contract because he was going to be their starting point guard. Where lo and behold, here comes LaMelo Ball, who actually ends up being the guy now. And this is, again, going to be a team that's going to be a guard-centric team. I think for the T-Wolves, it's a risk. It's a big risk. It feels like they had to do something, in large part because we kept hearing these whispers, however true or not they are. And I know a lot of, particularly small market teams and small market fan bases and even media members get very protective of their stars and of people looking to kind of put their stars in other places. And I certainly get that. And I don't want to be insensitive to that. But for whatever reason, you kept hearing these whispers about Anthony Edwards not all that thrilled with the team and the direction, given they traded Karl-Anthony Towns, who was someone who he liked a lot and someone who was his mentor, so to speak, and Karl-Anthony Towns went somewhere else and won a championship. So there's been a lot of rumors and whispers about how happy is Anthony Edwards with where things are going right now in Minnesota. Whether they're true or untrue, we just don't know, but I'm telling you the whispers existed. This move feels like a move where they looked at the team and said, whether it was their own evaluation or the evaluation of their star players, and said that we have to do something drastic, and this is something drastic. Listen, LaMelo Ball brings a lot to the table that I think will help Anthony Edwards' game, in that it's going to be much harder to double Anthony Edwards because LaMelo Ball is someone who has no conscience when it comes to shooting, being aggressive, looking for his own shot. He's also someone that can shoot and can be dangerous. He is someone that can absolutely light it up when he gets red hot. So for teams that have really feasted on double teaming Anthony Edwards and making him get rid of the ball and showing him two bodies, I think it becomes a lot harder to do that when you have a point guard the caliber of LaMelo Ball. I also think Anthony Edwards perhaps will get some easier baskets because LaMelo Ball is a extremely gifted passer. Maybe not as willing as you'd want him to be, but when he's determined, he is one of the best passers in the NBA. He can make almost any read. He can make almost any pass because of not just his size, but also his skill set. So Anthony Edwards having to continuously dribble past 3 or 4 guys to get his shots off, perhaps you'll be able to get him some easier looks and some transition opportunities, but he's playing with a point guard who has the ability to make those plays. I do think for LaMelo Ball, there are some changes in his game he's going to have to make for this to work. His shot selection is abysmal. I mean, there's no other way to really describe it. You take some of the good with the bad because he's so creative, but I think some of that creativity and some of that green light he was given in Charlotte was also part of the problem. It's part of the reason why his efficiency numbers continue to be so poor. He does not have a great shot selection. And I do think for a team that no longer is going to be able to feast off of easy looks and interior scoring because you lost Randall and because you lost Naz Reid, I think his shot diet has to improve in a much better way. I also have a question about what this guy's basketball character is. He, again, has never been on a team that has made the playoffs. He's never been on a team that has really been worthwhile in the NBA. And for a guy who has talked about, I think wanting to play for a winner, we haven't already seen him play with the level of focus and commitment needed to play winning basketball. Now, again, he did it for half a season last year, and he deserves a ton of credit for that. But the fact that the Charlotte Hornets still saw that and said, let's move on, it does give me pause. I can't wait to see. This is, to me, one of the most intriguing teams in the NBA because this is the number 1 and number 3 pick in the draft playing together, which is rare, right? They were the guys that were in the same draft together just, in 2020. This is going to be an interesting experiment, but that's what it is, an experiment. And I don't know if this is one that we're going to get real answers to in just 1 year. This may be one of those trades where you're going to have to kind of wait a year or two because there's going to be a real loss for the T-Wolves for the rest of their roster. Because again, outside of Rudy Gobert, they really don't have much functional size. Like, this is kind of it. Like, they are going to be playing a much smaller team. Of course, they'll be able to make maybe some more moves on the periphery during the offseason. But this is a major move here in terms of, again, a shift in their identity. I wonder, and I think we'll talk about this when we talk about the draft as well. I feel like some of this move is also a Spurs, Thunder, Knicks reaction, because everybody talked about the Spurs and Wemby and having to have size and somebody to guard Wemby, and that is true. I think what also became true when playing the Thunder, playing the Spurs, and then when the Knicks beat the Spurs, is if you don't have high value guard play, you have no shot against those teams, because those teams speed you up and heat you up so much defensively, and they put so much pressure on you that if you're relying on Anthony Edwards or one or two guys to simply just do all of the work, you're in a ton of trouble. Unless you have someone special like Jalen Brunson. And I think that's why in the draft, you saw a lot of teams not shying away from taking some of these guards. The guards are where the strength was in the draft for sure. But I think seeing Jalen Brunson's success in this league and seeing his success against the Spurs and how having him was the antidote to the Spurs' defensive pressure in many ways, I think that was something that teams are considering now when they move ahead. And I think watching who the Spurs can throw at you defensively, who the Thunder can throw at you defensively, the volume of guards that those teams have, I think teams are looking at saying we can't have just one or two guys and think we're going to beat those teams. We got to have more depth. And the Spurs were able to beat the Thunder in part because they had multiple guards. Even when guys got hurt, like De'Aaron Fox got hurt, they still were able to attack the rim, attack the paint, and put pressure on the vaunted defense of the Oklahoma City Thunder. I think some of this is a reaction to that. I think the T-Wolves look at it and say, listen, we have size, that didn't really help us against the Thunder. It didn't really help us against the Spurs because we didn't have good enough guard play. So we got to improve the backcourt. We got to not allow teams to load up on Anthony Edwards. So this is the move they're making. I think that it's an interesting one, and I'm for LaMelo Ball's sake. This is really going to be the defining moment of his career. In many ways, I feel like his career begins next season. Like, he's played in the NBA now for 5-6 seasons now, but like playing in Charlotte is almost like you're not playing in the NBA. As crazy as that sounds, just because you're so irrelevant and so few people outside of basketball nerds like myself following your game, following your season, that what you do there doesn't really matter. It's funny because a lot of the narratives that came out about this trade, some of them felt unfair to LaMelo because of how well he played last year. People are like, oh, this guy, all he does is lose, and this guy doesn't know how to win. I'm like, well, that's been this part of his career, and that's a part of his story. But I mean, last year he was awesome. Like, the team was awesome. He was awesome. Like, it's hard to really say that about him. That was a short window. Like, there were some growing pains. Like, mid-season, he was sitting a couple games, and wasn't sure why, and it didn't seem like him and the coach were on the same page. So it wasn't like it was a smooth sailing season for him at all. But second half of the season, he got rolling, the team got rolling. So even some of the commentary, I think, spoke to just how irrelevant Charlotte is. It's Minnesota. It's not like he's going to play for the Lakers or the Knicks or the Celtics, but I think Anthony Edwards is a big star, and this is a franchise that's going to be followed closely as long as Anthony Edwards is there. And LaMelo Ball, even though Charlotte's irrelevant, he's a big name. So his NBA career begins now, and I think how we view LaMelo Ball for the rest of his career is really going to be defined most likely by how this T-Wolves run works. This is a team that went to back-to-back Western Conference Finals. Last year, they went to the Western Conference semifinals, lost to the Western Conference champions in the San Antonio Spurs. If they fall anywhere short of that, LaMelo Ball is going to take a lot of the heat. Tim Connolly, their team president, is also going to take a lot of the heat. And there's going to be questions about Anthony Edwards and whether or not this is a place for him to stay long term. That's just the reality. And I know some people don't like that part of the game. Some people hate that the NBA has become this, where we're asking where this next guy who, disgruntled star is going to go. I'm just done, being upset about it. I mean, people get upset about it, and I mean, if it's your team, I understand. If you're a T-Wolves fan, I understand it. But the people outside that get so crazy about this, I'm like, what? It's the NBA. This is how it works. I hated when Kevin Durant, said that it was normal for, Steve Nash to get fired 10 games into the NBA season or whatever it was a couple years ago. I thought it was ridiculous, but, like, he's looking more and more right in terms of just how wacky this league gets. It's becoming a lot more like soccer. So we'll see. But this is definitely maybe a precursor to bigger moves. And on the Charlotte side, before I move on, I'm very fascinated by this move from the Charlotte side. Because on the flip side, like I said before, Charlotte had a great second half. And I thought that they were a potentially scary team if they made the playoffs. And I don't know what happened in the game against the Magic. I thought they were a better team than the Magic. They got their doors blown off. I don't know what happened. But I think if they got into the playoffs, they would have been a dangerous team for the Detroit Pistons in the first round. And after what I saw from the Detroit Pistons, I feel like they might have lost that series. To move on from your franchise player is a big risk. Now, again, you got their first round pick swaps to get some second round picks. But for a team that was ascending, this is a massive shift in terms of where they were going. Now, what I will say is, given how Charles Lee wants to play, given what I think is the team's kind of massive hole at the 4, I know they have Miles Bridges, but Bridges is undersized. I think this is a great spot for Naz Reid potentially. Like, I think Naz Reid could ascend potentially into, like, borderline all-star player. Not like top, not all NBA guy maybe, or maybe fringe all NBA third team kind of guy. But, like, I think he can go there and play well because he's a very good player. He's somebody that's been obviously a 6 Man of the Year type guy. He's only not started because he's been playing behind Karl-Anthony Towns and Julius Randle. And I think there were some fans that wondered if he should have been starting over Julius Randle because of how efficient he is. He is a great 3-point shooter for a guy his size. Not even for a guy his size, just for an NBA player. He's a great 3-point shooter. He's a great 3-point shooter. He can score in the paint. He's versatile. He can defend. Like, he's really good. And I'm fascinated to see if he can take that next leap playing on this team. The way they want to play, they play this free-flowing, up-and-down kind of game, and they're going to want to let the three ball fly. Like, this guy, he may play great in this system. But does the system look a lot different when you don't have LaMelo Ball's creativity? Like, is the LaMelo Ball the special sauce that makes the Charles Lee system work? That to me is a multi-million-dollar question that the Hornets are betting on. They're betting that they re-signed Kobe White. He was a guy that apparently told them that he didn't want to come back if he was going to be a backup. So that may have been a precursor to why LaMelo Ball ended up traded. Because Kobe White came over. He played well as well. But Kobe White's an entirely different player. And I'm a big Kobe White fan. People who have listened to me talk about Kobe White know I think that he's one of the more underrated players in the NBA. He's an entirely different player. He's kind of like a small shooting guard. Like, he can play point and he plays point, but he's a scorer. And he's not the creative passer, the guy with the same kind of court vision as LaMelo Ball. So I'm curious, like, how much do they lose from that free-flowing offense when you take LaMelo Ball out of there and put in Kobe White, who's going to be a guy who's more looking for his shot. These are two fascinating teams. The Hornets are fascinating. They also create a massive trade exception, which also is raising eyebrows as to maybe why this trade happened. Like, is there another move down the pipe? A lot of people talking about Jaylen Brown. I mean, there's some folks talking about Tyrese Maxey, which seems kind of crazy, but they created a $40.5 million trade exception with this move. Now, that's not going to fit Jaylen Brown's salary, but again, it would fit Tyrese Maxey's salary, and some other guys making around $40 million. Is there another move coming for Charlotte? Are they really ready to take a really, really big swing on someone else to kind of fill out the roster? Interesting stuff happening over there with the Charlotte Hornets and the T-Wolves. I think both teams come into next year, two of the more interesting teams in the NBA. Sticking in the NBA. Let's talk about the NBA World Champs, New York Knicks. It's good to say that. It will never stop being good to say that. I will be a little honest, though. Reading some of the reporting yesterday and this morning, that championship high starting to come down a little bit as we look ahead to next season, because we haven't had a repeat champion in 8 years. The Knicks are going to be the next team to try to do this, and it seems like they're going to try to do this without one of their key pieces. So, according to pretty much all reporting. We heard it from Sean's, we've heard it from Ian Bagley from SNY, we've heard it from Stephon Bondi from the New York Post. It seems like Mitchell Robinson's days with the New York Knicks are coming to an end. Mitchell Robinson is an unrestricted free agent. The Knicks are very close to crossing the second apron. I think they're about $13 or $14 million right now, short of the apron. That's before you even include Jose Alvarado potentially opting in. They've already committed to Mo Diawara, so that's a couple $1 million you got to shave off of that. So they're getting close to that second apron, and we heard James Dolan go on the station I work for, WFAN, a couple weeks ago. Maybe it was I think it was last week actually. Wherever it was so recent, and say that they were not willing to go into the second apron to keep their players. He said that going into the second apron is, quote, suicidal. That was his description for the second apron tax rules. Now you're asking, for a lot of people, what is the second apron? Because for some fans who maybe are familiar with how the rules have changed, they may not know what this means, and they're wondering why James Dolan is so concerned about the second apron. Well, it's a luxury tax threshold that comes with roster building penalties that aren't nothing. I'm not going to try to poo-poo them. A lot of them, basically, if you remain in the apron, is kind of the bigger problem. If you're there for a couple years, you can see your draft picks go immediately to the end of the first round. You aren't able to basically sign any players that are bought out mid-season unless they're already making the minimum. There's a lot of, again, punitive things. You can't trade your draft picks, which Knicks can't really do that anyway because of the Mikal Bridges trade. But you can't trade your draft picks that are 5 and 7 years out. There's a lot of real penalties. I can name the other ones, but those are the ones that come off the top of my head as real issues. Also, when you're making a trade, instead of the 125% of salary you have to match, now you have to match 110%. You have to be much closer in terms of salary to make trades work. It's a tough deal for sure. And we've seen teams dip into the apron and dip out as quickly as they can. Like the Cavs are a team, for example, that were in the apron this past season, and with the deal that they're likely going to sign to James Harden, they're going to make sure that they can dip right back underneath the apron, because again, the goal is to not stay in the apron. You can dip in, but if you stay in, those penalties start to really ramp up, and the Knicks are not in a position to want to stay in there, according to James Dolan. I say according to James Dolan because it feels, and now we're getting more explicit reporting that this is a James Dolan decision, not a Leon Rose Knicks front office decision. In fact, I want to read this part of an article that came out just this morning by Fred Katz, national NBA writer for The Athletic, who also used to be a Knicks beat writer for The Athletic, so someone who certainly has Knicks ties. He says here, in talking about where the threshold and how the Knicks are approaching it, he said, going beyond the $222 million figure, that is the second apron, and a franchise kisses away the ability to make most types of trades and execute most kinds of free agent signings. The Knicks front office knows this, and yet it also understands that dipping below the second apron would lead to much of its depth flocking elsewhere, which is why, despite Dolan's desires, it wants to go over the second apron, according to league sources who are granted anonymity to speak freely, but so far, James Dolan has not changed his mind. Which leads to, I think, an uncomfortable question that has to be asked because of the higher visibility we've seen and the now reporting we're seeing about how the Knicks front office views this team, how they want to move forward, and how that is not in the same direction James Dolan wants to go. Who is making basketball decisions? It's a scary question to ask because it's a question that when we asked this in the past and we learned it was James Dolan, that didn't do well for the team in many different avenues, different ways, and I can tell you a million examples of how he screwed things up. So who's making the basketball decisions is a question that we haven't had to ask during the Leon Rose era because James Dolan, according to people close to the team, or rather reporters who said they talked to people close to the team, he ain't really been around. He's been doing the stuff with the Sphere. Leon Rose was doing a pretty good job with the team, so he didn't feel a need to really have to insert himself in any significant way. It seems like the only significant way he really inserted himself was to fire Tom Thibodeau, which was the right thing to do. To be clear, I supported him in it. I have people telling me that how you support Dolan doing this. I'm like, the guy has to go, and then lo and behold, they won a championship. But besides that, I can't think of an instance where it sounded like he was in any way kind of infringing upon what the team wants to do. That is not the case anymore. That is unless Fred Katz is lying or whatever, and I don't think he's lying. I have no reason to believe that. Or unless he just has his sources wrong, or there's people feed them bad information. Again, there's no reason to think that Fred Katz is an excellent reporter. Then we are at the threshold to ask the question: is James Dolan starting to infringe on the basketball decision making from Leon Rose in that front office? And if that's the case, that's the worst case scenario for the Knicks moving forward. Listen, they've won a championship. So I had a lot of Knicks fans that are upset at me today. It's rare that I'm in that in that space on X. That's fine. I'm fine to be the bad guy today if I have to be the bad guy today. But for all Mitchell Robinson's imperfections, the guy can't make free throws. It seems like his health is very much on the fringe, though it seemed like they figured it out. Just don't play him back to back, so he seems to be fine. Well, despite all those things about his game, obviously he doesn't have a post-up game. He's really a guy that if he's not scoring the ball at the rim, alley-oops, stuff like that, he's not really going to score. The Knicks thought he was so important to them winning a championship that they kept him on ice for 2 years. And then they won a championship. So I think this attitude that, Mitchell Robinson, we can just throw him away. It doesn't matter. We'll just replace him. Like, why do you think he's so replaceable? Who are you getting in free agency, or who are you trading for who's going to be making, basically pennies on the dollar that is going to bring the impact Mitchell Robinson brings defensively on the glass? We talk about Mitchell Robinson being a limited offensive player, but he makes the Knicks a much better offensive team. Someone who's followed this team closely knows when you look at the Knicks, their offensive rating and why it's been so inflated. A big reason why is because of Mitchell Robinson's offensive rebounding impact. When you get extra possessions, your field goal percentage skyrockets, and the Knicks destroy teams on the offensive glass when Mitchell Robinson's on the floor. So he has real, tangible attributes that make the Knicks a much better basketball team. If you're telling me that going into the second apron is too much of a deterrent to keep the rest of the team together, that's fine, but understand that you're signing up for a worse basketball team next year. That's my opinion. Is you're signing up for a team. I would be surprised. I'm not saying it can't happen, and if they do, I would be happy to be wrong and be surprised. But I will be surprised if we find the Knicks with a backup center option as good as Mitchell Robinson starting in October next year when the season gets off and they raise the banners. The free agent options that are out there aren't great. We're talking about Nikola Vucevic, who basically became unplayable in Boston. My shout out to Kaz Famuyide. He mentioned, hey, listen, should we consider Kristaps Porzingis? I'm open to that, but Kristaps Porzingis is more brittle, more unreliable health-wise than even Mitchell Robinson is. There aren't these great options out there to replace Mitch. And we're talking about keeping Mitchell Robinson. If you can't keep Mitch, who's to say you can keep Landry Shamet, who is also going to be in for a big payday? This guy, thank goodness he didn't play that great in the finals, because, this guy would have been gone. Because the guy shot 90% from the three-point line in the conference finals. You don't think teams are going to look at that and say, we could use a guy like that? Like, he was playing the best ball of his career, and he just won a championship. Again, the finals performances weren't so great, so maybe you'll see maybe those numbers that would have been really ballooned, maybe not so much. Like, can they replace Landry Shamet? In theory, maybe, but the reality, too, is because they're going through so much lengths to try to limit costs, they're also not replenishing the roster with any young talent. Because they keep trading back. This year during the draft, they essentially traded out the first round so they can get to reach an area of the draft where they could take somebody who would likely take a rookie minimum to come onto the team as opposed to taking a first round pick. Can they hit on those guys? Sure. They hit on Mo Diawara, who's awesome. I can't wait to see him play. I'm glad he's going to be on the team. But you're basically it's like the Knicks are worried about, and Dolan seems to be worried about the Knicks having to try to keep their team together and build their team with one hand tied behind their back. But by doing this, you're still working with one hand tied behind your back. Because it's not like this team is, they're 50 million or 30 million away from the apron. They're still going to be close up to the apron regardless of how this goes. So they're still going to be working in a way that's going to make it tough for them to make moves because they don't want to go into this second apron thing. So I don't know. I don't love this. I'm being honest. I do not love this. I don't love the idea of losing Mitchell Robinson. I think that what a lot of people who maybe are failing to grasp about the second apron is, yes, you go to the second apron, there are some penalties that come into play, but it's not necessarily about going into the second apron. It's about staying in the second apron. That's what you don't want to do. And yes, it may lead to hard conversations in the future, but this is a team that won a championship right now. I'd rather have those conversations about, okay, do you have to move off Josh Hart? Do you have to move off Mitchell Robinson? Do you have to move off some of these contracts you signed once you sign them, because you then have to figure out what you're going to do moving forward? Like, those are real questions. And speaking of money and second apron stuff, like, okay, we're not going to second apron for Mitchell Robinson. What about Jalen Brunson when he becomes extension eligible? Karl-Anthony Towns is extension eligible. Like, are you not going to sign? Are those guys on? Are we going to trade? Are we going to trade Karl-Anthony Towns? Are we going to ask Jalen Brunson to take another pay cut? That's not happening. Like, there's real reasons to look at this and just wonder kind of the direction and how the Knicks are going to be able to continue to keep this team together, if that's even going to be possible. So, a little bit of a disappointing day for the Knicks. I mean, Mitchell Robinson, he's the longest tenured Knick. He's one of the few guys that was actually drafted by the team. He is stuck around through all the nonsense. Like, Deuce was on the team, but Deuce got the team and they were pretty good. Mitchell Robinson was there when they were the worst team in the NBA. And he saw them win an NBA championship. And he was a big reason why. I mean, he literally put the face of the NBA under the rim for an offensive rebound that secured an NBA championship. I think some of that championship high is making some fans and some people kind of poo-poo his impact or think, we'll just be fine. I'm like, if they would just be fine, then why were they so afraid of him missing games or afraid of him missing time to the point where they would have preferred to just be a worse team in the regular season without him? They would prefer to say, you know what, we can't win if this guy isn't available in the playoffs. And now it's not they. Because, again, the reporting is Dolan. Dolan is deciding that you can win without this guy. And I'm tired of the framing coming from fans who are acting, again, that this is a team decision when the reporting is just that it's not. If you think that Mitchell Robinson, the team is better off not going to the apron to re-sign Mitchell Robinson, then you are on the team Dolan side of this. You're not on team Leon Rose, team Worldwide West, team Walt Parent, team, Gerson Rosas. You're not on that team, Brock Aller. You're not that team. According to reports, wants to keep Mitchell Robinson. They keep waiting for me, hoping that James Dolan will change his mind, and he won't. So I don't know. This is again not news that you wanted to hear. I think if you're a Knicks fan, I think if you're you're a fan of somebody else in the East, and you're looking for some wiggle room. Again, this is not like they're losing Jalen Brunson. I don't want to make this bigger than it is. You're not losing Jalen Brunson. You're not losing Cat immediately. So like. Again, we understand what this move means, but in terms of like impact, but it's still a move. I think if you're a team in the East, say, okay, Knicks gonna come in a little worse next year. Ariel Hepporti, who by the way is also a free agent. Like again, once you start with Mitchell Robinson, like the Knicks have a ton of free agents: Jordan Clarkson, Landry Shamet, Jose Alvarado, Ariel Hepporti. Okay, they made a decision to Diawara. He's coming back with me. Now you have less money. This is not going to be the begin. This is just the beginning of this. Like, who else is not coming back? I hope Hepporti, I assume he's going to have to come back. I assume, but what money, right? Like, and is he ready to take on the role of being the full-time backup center? Like, listen, he gave them really good minutes in Game 5 in the NBA Finals, and when he was thrust out there to play. And he's not the, free throw liability that Mitchell Robinson is, but he's not as good as Mitchell Robinson. Can he get there? Can he continue to improve? Maybe. We'll see. He's a young player, but he's got a long way to go. So this is a big move for the Knicks to decide to move on from Mitchell Robinson. Speaking of NBA offseason, again, the NBA draft happened over this past week. This is going to be, I think, a phenomenal rookie class AJ DeBanza from BYU goes number 1. Darren Peterson from Kansas goes number 2 to Utah. Of course, DeBanza going to Washington, of course. And number 3, Carlos Boozer? That's a Cameron Boozer, Carlos Boozer's son. He goes number 3 to the Memphis Grizzlies. But I want to talk about the draft in the sense that this is, again, going to set up to be one of, I think, maybe the best classes we've seen in a long time. Caleb Wilson, I think, is a perfect fit for the Bulls at 4. He was somebody that I circled for the Bulls pretty much as soon as they won the lottery. Said they land Caleb Wilson, this could be the beginning of something in Chicago, because this is the franchise-changing, not just player, but also just attitude and person that this team has been looking for. Love the pick at 4. Darius Acuff going to Sacramento. I thought Sacramento had one of the best nights in the draft. Obviously, they didn't have to move an inch to get a guy who I had as the number 4 player on my board, and he was right up there with Caleb Wilson for number 3. He definitely could have made a case for number 3. He was one of the most dynamic players in college basketball last season, and it's a team that they have a need at a lot of spots, but they definitely have a need at point guard. And they get Acuff. I also liked what they got getting one of my draft steals in this one. Alex Caravan trading up into the first round to get him. I thought he'd be a second round pick, but as you saw with the second round talent discrepancy being so large that he was probably a guy, if you could secure, you could get him. I don't mind going into the first round and getting that extra option year and getting him that guaranteed salary. So I thought the Kings had a really good night. I thought the Spurs had a really good night in the draft. They were a little lower in the draft, but I just mentioned this was a team that lost the NBA Finals in part because they lost the physicality battle in the paint as those games wore on late in the games when, again, Mitch Robinson putting people under the rim, Karl Anthony Towns having the impact he had. You had Jaden Quains from Kentucky. Didn't play much at Kentucky, more from Arizona State from the year before. Young guy, but super athletic, super physical. And Tyrus Reed, who's absolute ox down in the paint. For a team that I thought kept playing Luke Cornett in large part because they didn't feel like they had viable options outside of him, I kind of agree to disagree there. I think they should have tried to play Olynyk or Plumlee or somebody instead of Cornett when he continued to be so ineffective. Now you have real options, I think. Those are Tyrus Reed, another one of my steals that I'm happy he went first round. I think that he's an impact player. And Jaden Quaintance is like he's a little bit of a dart throw, but man, that guy hits. The athletic profile and strength of the team of the Spurs just increased in a major way. I think that they were really smart to go double big to give Wemby some more help from down low. So I thought that they had a really good night. This was also a big night for just point guards in general. You had Keaton Wagler go 5, Michael Brown 6, Acuff 7, Kingston Flemings 8, Braden Berry's 10. Then you had Bennett Sturts at 16, Abuka Okore at 17, Christian Anderson at 18. That's 3 straight point guards in a row. And LeBaron Philon at 22, and then Sergio Delaria, who's kind of a combo, at 25. Point guard was the storyline of this draft. And that's why I said earlier, I think that the Spurs, I think that the Thunder, I think the Knicks made some point guards a lot of money during this draft. I think this is the strength of the draft. Like these were I thought the best players, but the fact that where in previous years we saw NBA teams being very cautious about really taking the plunge on some of these young guards because playing point guard in the NBA is a dog-eat-dog world. There is so much competition at that position, and it's so hard for a young player to come in and thrive playing that position that I think a lot of times guys just feel like they're better off just saying, you know what, we'll take a guy in the second round, or we'll try to find a guy who's a little more established because we've seen so many high-end point guards get drafted and never live up to the hype. D'Angelo Russell, again, I mentioned someone like Kobe White who's good but didn't become a great player. Teams have been afraid. They don't seem to have that fear anymore, given we've seen now teams with volume guards or teams with transcendent guards like the Knicks go far in the playoffs. So I think those were some of the key storylines in this draft. I can't wait to see these guys play. It's gonna be a fun class. It's gonna be a fun class. I think there'll be questions about that definitely top 4 for sure. In terms of once we actually see these guys on the court, did Washington make the right decision in taking DeBanza? I am someone who thought that DeBanza was the right pick. He was my number 1 guy on the board. I thought he's the best player in the draft. I also think he's probably the best fit for the team that they have. For better or for worse, they've committed to Trae Young as their franchise point guard at max money. Which means if you're going to do that, you need to have a supremely athletic, long team around him to make up for his discrepancies in size, strength, and defensive ability. So you get a guy at 6'9" with AJ DeBantis' athletic profile to go along with Alex Sarr, to go along with Anthony Davis, who I think they're hoping to convince that this is a place he can finish his career potentially. This is the right move. I think if you go Darren Peterson, as talented as he's offensively, and he's a good defensive player, but he's, this is a 6'5" guard who I don't think is really gonna help Trae Young or really complement Trae Young in a way that probably you need most to try to kind of combat a lot of his deficiencies. So you went there, that made sense. You go Boozer again, as a team that already has some size. I don't know if Boozer made the most sense. So the Bance, I think, was the right pick. But then the questions then go to 2. Was Darren Peterson the right pick at 2 over Cam Boozer, over Caleb Wilson? Again, Peterson, a lights out scorer. I think questions about makeup, maybe because of some of the stuff that happened at Kansas, him not wanting to get on the court. I certainly said that I would have reservations drafting him number 1 because of what I saw over the course of the season. He goes to a team in Utah that is trying to win right now. And while I think from a actual basketball roles and building a team, just like I said, the T-Wolves, I felt like they're the first team trying to win an NBA championship with a roster build that resembles a Nike EYBL team. I feel like the Jazz are in the same boat. This is a team that has a lot of scoring, has a lot of guys that can put the ball in the basket, has a lot of talent, but do they have guys who are willing to do the dirty work? Do they have guys that are willing to make the hustle plays? Do they have guys that are willing to find ways to make impacts on the game when plays aren't being drawn up for them? And they got Marketing, Jaren Jackson, who is a defender, so he can make impacts other ways. But Marketing, Jackson, Keontae George, Ace Bailey, and Isaiah Collier, Bryce Sensabaugh, and now Darren Peterson. A lot of talent. I just question, some of the fit standpoint from that, from in terms of, again, who are the guys going to be willing to sacrifice on this team. What I will say is I think it's good for this young man in Peterson to go to a team where I think whatever issues he was dealing with Kansas, I think it would be a lot harder to pull some of that stuff on a team with this much talent. Because these are guys that can come in and play. And listen, he's going to now be the franchise player or one of the franchise players on this team. But I think when you go to a locker room with guys as talented, it's a lot harder to pull the superstar card and I don't feel like playing today and I can't do this, I can't do that with these guys. He goes to Washington, or maybe Washington's tough too with Trae Young and what's his name, but he goes to Memphis or he goes to Chicago or he goes to Brooklyn, where it's the problem I had a little bit with Zion Williamson, where I felt like the organization coddled him too much early in his career. I don't know if Utah's being a place where he's going to be coddled, which I think is actually really good for his career. It's a fun class. It's a fun class. There's a lot of great talent. I think there are a lot of sleepers in this draft. The only thing I will say about the NBA draft, I think, is a conversation we have every year, which is not good, and it means something that they're gonna have to improve and change. Is they're gonna have to figure out the presentation of this draft. It just stinks. It's not good. Whether it's the inability to clearly and concisely tell your audience what is happening, which sounds insane, but is a actual problem the NBA has, because there are trades that are happening so fast and graphics that are not being updated that you have guys going up to be selected by teams that they're not going to play for, wearing hats for teams that they're not going to play for. You're getting evaluations by draft analysts of players and their fits for teams they're not going to play for. And so much so, I thought that when watching the ESPN broadcast, I didn't watch the ABC broadcast. Apparently, there was some Jay Williams, Richard Jefferson beef. I don't know. Maybe I should have tuned in because I don't know what's going on there. But I watched the main broadcast, and I actually thought at certain points, the analysts kind of were afraid to really give evaluations in terms of a player's fit on a particular team, because they just had no idea where these players were going. And it's so fixable. The NFL does not have this problem. They have an NFL draft where there are trades happening all the time. And you watch the draft, you see what happens. You watch the draft, they're talking about a thing, and all of a sudden you see the graphic change. And all of a sudden it went from the Rams making a pick to the Patriots making a pick. You're like, oh, Patriots is picking now. Ooh, this is interesting. And then the actual analysts on the set can react to, okay, this is a trade that's been happening. Then we now know the Patriots are making this pick. What does this mean for the Patriots? What should they look for? Okay, now this guy gets drafted. He goes up there. He wears the Patriots hat. It all makes sense. Everyone seems to understand what's going on. The fact that the NBA won't fix this issue for a TV product for them that clearly has importance. They sell the TV rights for it. So clearly it's not like it's something they don't care about. It's mind-boggling to me. Like, that was a night in 2 nights, but definitely the first night, of course. That's a night where, like, again, people have been saying all season, all college basketball season, oh man, this NBA draft's going to be awesome. And for these teams that lost, people wanted to time to tune in. I'm very curious how this rating will go up, but I think it's probably pretty good. People wanted to tune in, and they don't know who the hell, where these guys are going. The analysts, Malika Andrews, and I'm not dissing the analysts or Malika Andrews, it's not their fault. It was hard to follow. It was hard for me to follow. I don't understand why they don't fix this. You're putting, and we can blame ESPN and give, you know, and I've had my criticisms with ESPN and how they've covered the draft. I think to a certain point they're just being put in a hard spot. Like, I told my brother Kendall, shout out to Kendall, of course, you know, part of New Generation Media. I told him, I was like, yo, I don't know if I'd want the NBA draft as a media partner. Maybe I'm stupid. Maybe there's a lot of money in that. But I don't know if it's worth the hassle for a production that is, like, almost impossible to actually, like, follow. And we'll see how the NBA, how the fans continue to react to the fact that this has become such a hard process to follow. But this whole not being able to have players simply be selected by the teams that they're going to play for, or not be able to adequately explain to the audience where a guy is going, that is unacceptable. What's the point of watching this if you might as well just send a freaking press release or send a fax to to the news outlets and say, here are the results of the draft, let's move on, like they did back in the 60s and 50s, if this is going to be the case. I gotta watch a guy, Cam Carr, go up there with a Knicks hat. No, he's not playing for the Knicks. Like, why? Like, and the reasons why it's like, oh, the league year hasn't started. A lot of these moves, they're retroactive to like July 6th. I think that's the date when the league year officially starts. So they can't announce these moves, even though the moves have been made. I'm like, if the moves have been made and Shams is announcing it, I'd much prefer you just put the regular the right graphic up there. Put it up there, and if in a week we realize, oh, listen, the Cam Carr thing ain't gonna work out because there's somebody failed the physical or something, I'd rather have that than consistently have almost all of these guys that are getting traded never wearing the same hat, never having the right team on the right graphic. I'd much prefer the NFL model, where you make a trade, you tell the league office this trade is being made, that it's gonna be retroactive to July 6th. You can even have the commissioner say that. He can say, in a trade that's been made that's retroactive to July 6th, with this pick, the correct team picks this player. I don't know why that is, like, they're, like, insulting our intelligence. Like, we're like, sports fans understand some logic to why certain things have to be, presented in a certain way. I think it's starting to insult our intelligence by doing this consistently. And again, you're making it harder to follow, harder to watch. It's a harder to watch production with this. I don't get it. It's silly, completely silly. But I think hopefully we will move past the actual draft, and when we actually see these guys play, we'll be really excited. But there'll be probably teams that wait, we don't got Cam Carr. Like Knicks fans, I mean, maybe not Knicks fans are pretty smart, but some other teams like Grizzlies fans, like we don't have Ben and Sturts, thought he was on the team. Like or even NBA fans who like they're following their team very closely, and they're kind of like watching draft, seeing trades happen, and they can't follow everything. I mean, the Knicks traded Sergio Delaria like minutes. It was like 5-10 minutes after he got drafted. For a while, people thought Sergio Delaria was going to the Knicks, and then he turned out he was going somewhere else. He was going to Dallas, I believe. And then like Cole Pete gets drafted at the 30th pick, and then Malika Andrews at their sign out saying, "Oh, by the way, Cole Pete's not going to be taken by the whatever team he was, whoever the 30. Actually, he's going to Dallas or whatever." Like, what are we doing? Like, you're signing off. You don't even have real analysis of the fact that a trade was happening with a first round pick. Why? Like, my brother says this, and I think he's right. Like, if for a league that actually, like, again, sells the draft rights to this, sells the media rights to this, they treat it as if it actually doesn't matter. They don't treat it. It's the most important, arguably the most important part of the NBA outside of the playoffs and games being played is the guys that are coming in. These are the guys that are going to shape the league. Like, this haphazard, half-assed crap that they're allowing to be their production of this product is silly. I don't understand it. I don't. Shift gears here. Let's head over to the World Cup. Good news, USA is advancing to the next round of 32. This is the first time the World Cup is having a round of 32. So they cruised with ease after winning their first two games, and they've actually still won their group. The bad news is, despite winning their group and advancing, they did lose their last game last night to Turkey 3-2 in group play. That was a group play finale. Turkey did not have a great group session, but they did win this game. The U.S. were up 1-0 in this game, but then conceded 2 goals that went down 2-1. Then Berhalter hit a rocket from about 20 yards out to tie the game, but it was in the 90th, well, really the 98th minute, but 90 minutes plus 8 minutes. So it was 8 minutes into extra time when Turkey scored the winning goal that gave the U.S. its first loss in the World Cup during this group play system. And now they move forward in next Wednesday. They will play at home. They will go to Levi Stadium in Santa Clara, and they will face Bosnia to see who advances to round of 16. Listen, I think you don't want to freak out by the fact that the U.S. actually took a loss in this group or lost this final game. This was not a game where they necessarily played all their starters, or the starters that did play played limited minutes and limited time. So this is not some end-all, be-all, some terrible thing that they lost this game. I do think it's unfortunate to me that they, for a team that was riding so high because of how dominant they looked in their first two games, even just a little bit of doubt, even just a little bit of slippage. The momentum was so high. I do have some concern about whether or not, like, you lose a bit of momentum by losing this game to a team that they should have beat, and clearly they were much better than. They had so many shots on goal. They had so many more chances to score than Turkey did. And the fact that Turkey still found a way to net 3 goals with the limited amount of opportunities they had, to me, shows the defensive breakdowns that they had were so devastating that it's the one, not the one issue. There's a lot. I mean, at the end of the day, the U.S., we're not talking about a team that's favored to win the World Cup. But if you were talking about one of the issues you had with this U.S. team was, would they be able to consistently defend, and how strong was their back line? You give up 3 goals to Turkey going into now the group of 30, the round of 32. I think those are questions you now have coming into the next round. Now, again, the good news for the U.S. is they're advancing anyway, so it doesn't matter. They're playing a Bosnia team that, Bosnia and Herzegovina, they gotta say, put full respect on their name, that I would assume that they're going to be favored over. Bosnia, in the matchups that they had during this World Cup, they're 1-1-1. So they tied with Canada. They lost 4-1 to Sweden, and then they advanced by beating Qatar 3-1. So, listen, it's not like they're facing Spain or England. Like, they're facing a team that I think is beatable. But it's gonna be interesting to see kind of how this team responds after taking this out, because the conversation and the optimism about this team was at a level that I don't think I've ever seen, to be quite honest. I mean, maybe, what was that, 2014, after when they advanced, they beat Egypt, and how well they played, and that kind of golden age group of Dempsey and Donovan and Michael Bradley and Tim Howard, like that group, they captured a lot of people's attention and hopes and dreams because of how well they were playing. Maybe that was the last time I saw this amount of optimism, but just the way the U.S. play, even the fact that they scored 2 goals in this game, like, this is a team that's finding the back of the net. Like, and that was always a problem, was that they just felt like their offense always felt remedial, always felt like they couldn't really keep up with even just the average teams offensively. That's not the case with this team. This team has plenty of firepower now, and they find goals. Again, the fact that if they would have had a game where they kind of didn't score well, I would have kind of said, okay, whatever, and Rice playing, game doesn't really matter, that's fine. And this is the one thing about this team that I think people are concerned about is, will they be able to defend consistently? So giving up 3 goals to Turkey, team that really is not an offensive team, that part of it was a little worrisome. But when we look at where they go next, again, they have Bosnia coming up in this next game, and if they win that, they will play the winner of games that have not been decided yet. I'm trying to figure out. I wish ESPN did a better job of finding the actual groups so you can see who they would likely play, but I can't even find that because the way they set this thing up. I guess standings is probably the best way to put it. Yeah, let me go to see standings. There we go. So I'm going to standings. So again, I'm pretty sure. Yeah, they rank these games. Yeah, so it's not even. It's hard. Yeah, it's hard to tell who they're gonna play. I don't even want to make a case of who they're gonna play. I mean, the way according to this bracket I'm looking at, I'm not, as you can see, the World Cup rules and who people play and stuff, they've changed a lot, so it's kind of sometimes hard to follow. But I believe from what I'm seeing is they will face either the winner of Group G if they beat Bosnia. In Group G right now, that is a group that's being won currently by, this is a crappy group. Egypt is currently winning this group. Belgium has not had a good, Belgium would have been the favorites. They have not had a good World Cup so far. So it'd probably either be Egypt or Iran. Belgium still has a shot too, I guess. But those are Egypt and Iran teams that they could definitely beat. And I think for the sake of humanity, I'm just kind of hoping there's not a U.S. versus Iran game, because that would probably break the internet. But that is, in terms of what I'm looking at here, I believe that is who they would face. Or a third-place team from various different groups. And obviously those teams are not going to be quite stacked. So the U.S., they're in a position to still get to the round of 16. And, every game matters and you can't look ahead. But once they get to the round of 16, I always felt like, when I've watched them, has really been their bugaboo. That has been the one where it's like, okay, they got to face a real team. A real European team, a real South American team. And that is usually when whether it's been Belgium in the past, all the other teams they lost, trying to think of other teams they lost to Ghana, they a real African team. Like, that is when they've typically found, like, trouble. Like, it's like, oh, this is where they met their match. Hopefully that they're ready for this smoke. Again, I will say, for someone who's followed Team USA soccer, this is the best offensive team I've ever seen that they've had, at least playing in a World Cup, and how fit they are right now. And it was good also, by the way, yesterday to see Christian Pulisic get out there and play. He had the calf issue, which kept him out of the last game. He came in as a sub in this one. I thought he looked pretty good. I don't know if he was really quite pushing it. Like, the way he started the first game, I mean, he looked crazy. And then crazy the best way. I mean, he looked awesome. I don't know if he's pushing like that, but he didn't seem to have any lingering effects. He seemed fine. So you hope now he recovers well from this past game. Whatever was issued with the calf, they can treat that. He can be a full goal for this game coming up on Wednesday. But disappointing loss. Again, not the momentum you want to have going in. I would have loved to see them win or at least draw. To lose to a team that's going away. Turkey's not advancing, by the way. This was their swan song. Again, a little annoying, but you got to keep it in perspective that the U.S. still has a chance to do big things in this World Cup. Shifting from the World Cup to baseball. The Mets are cooked. The Mets season is over. This thing's a dub. And this series with the Cubs feels like the watershed moment for the team that should lead to some changes. We've seen small changes. David Peterson, it was traded to the Cubs. They were playing the Cubs in a doubleheader, and after they lost, they said, okay, you go to the other side. So David Peterson's gone. He's kind of the first ripple effect, I guess, of the Mets realizing that this thing has got away from them. They've lost 6 straight now. They've lost 20 of 30. They are, at this point in time, 34 and 47 on the season. They're awful. They've lost 8 out of the last 10 games. I mean, this is one of the worst teams in Major League Baseball. This is also one of the most expensive teams in Major League Baseball. They had a game during that doubleheader loss to the Cubs in which they committed 6 errors, which was the most they had committed since 2014. 6 errors in a single game. The game they lost last night, they committed 2 errors in an inning that where Freddie Peralta is pitching a gem. He gives up two unearned runs that bring the Cubs ahead. This is just, like I posted on X-Man, this team is a clown car. I mean, they are a joke. They were not put together with any real sense and rhyme or reason. And it felt like they were put together by a president who was on an ego trip to prove people right instead of putting together the best baseball team. And David Stearns, like I've said pretty much since he got here, this guy's Achilles heel is this guy's insistence on not just taking the easy W's. His insistence on, instead of going for the layup, going for the between the legs dunk. To show how smart he is, which is why I call him Mr. Smarty Pants. So you see a team that is the worst defensive team in all of Major League Baseball play this way when the goal this offseason was to quote-unquote help run prevention is insulting to the fans, insulting to anybody with a baseball brain. I'm watching low light today as I'm getting ready for the show, watching Mark Vientos just throwing up on himself at first base. Beatty having issues in the outfield. Like this is a disgrace. An older roster that with guys who can't stay healthy. What was this guy thinking? What was he thinking? Putting this team together. And I thought maybe he could have saved it with Bo Bichette and with Freddie Peralta. Freddie Peralta, he had a good start yesterday. A lot of the stuff that happened wasn't his fault, but he is not proven to be an ace. I don't know what happened, but he just hasn't been as good in New York as he was the last few years in Milwaukee. And you gave up some high-end prospects to get rid of him. So that turned out to be a bust. Bo Bichette, his first year, and maybe his only year because he can opt out this year. Now, if I was him, I don't know why you want to opt out of that contract unless you just really hate playing in New York. But the Bo Bichette move, for a guy who's been available, that's one of the good things about him is that he's been around and he's starting to swing the bat a little better. But he hasn't been the difference maker offensively that he was expected to be. So that move right now has been a bust. And then Marcus Semien, who, by the way, now is hurt after playing a doubleheader where the manager didn't realize he was hurt or didn't understand that maybe he was dealing with something, that playing him in a doubleheader wasn't going to be smart. He's hitting .214 this year. He's 35 years old. Again, he's a good defensive player, I guess, but this is a team overall that's terrible defensively. It's just, I don't know. Yeah, I lost of words. What strikes me, what bothers me, and something I've said a bunch, is I don't understand why a team that's cost $330 million in salary, why they play so many scrubs. Like, Marcus Semien was given away. Mark Vientos would not be starting for any good teams. We're playing a lot of rookies. And AJ Ewing has had his moments. Benj, I think, has had a really good rookie year. But, we're playing rookies and scrubs. I'm seeing a lot of Luis Torrens. I'm seeing a lot of MJ Melendez. I'm seeing a lot of Jared Ewings. These are guys that shouldn't be getting this amount of burn on a team that's making $300 million. I don't see the Los Angeles Dodgers having to throw out AAA guys regularly. But for some reason with this team and with this owner, and now especially with this general manager / president, the Mets seem to be insistent or seem to somehow find their way into having a lineup that is filled with scrubs. Bullpen filled with scrubs. And then we wonder why the team is 13 games below 500. David Stearns, to me, in terms of what I think will happen, first of all, I don't know how Carlos Mendoza is still the manager. This team is so poor when it comes to fundamentals and when it comes to taking care of the little things. They're clearly checked out. They've clearly quit. I don't know why you would continue to keep a manager in place on a team that is quit this way. Maybe they feel like it's not worth it, so they're like, what's the big deal? But I think it's insulting to your fans to continue to put out that product every day and act like everything's okay. I think that is grotesque to keep doing that. To not at least feign disappointment and feign disapproval of how the team is playing. To keep Mendoza around it's like you're signing off, you're co-signing on this BS that the fans are having to watch every night. So I don't know how the hell Mendoza is still around as a manager. I posted the other morning after they lost that double header. I was like, if I wake up and Carlos Mendoza is still the manager, they might as well forfeit the season, which is basically what they're doing. He's still the manager. It doesn't seem like there's still a sign of him being fired, so I don't know what's going on. It does feel like they're forfeiting the season, which is why, again, I said that they're cooked, absolutely cooked. So I don't get the Carlos Mendoza thing, why he's still around at this point. He seems like a good guy, seems like a good baseball guy. The team has quit on him. He's not going to be the manager when his team turns it around, so why is he the manager now? Doesn't make sense. I don't know why Mendoza's here. And when we talk about the future of David Stearns, I told you guys, you can't say I didn't warn you. I said that this situation could become a Nico Harrison situation. And people saying, oh, you crazy, or you're bugging, I'm watching Mets games where fans are chanting Pete Alonso. Does that not sound familiar to what was happening in Dallas for the Dallas Mavericks a couple years ago when they traded Luka Doncic and they were chanting fire Nico, and they were making all these signs, bring back Luka, all the praise, not praise, but all the disappointment and the sadness that came with Luka Doncic being traded. Does that sound familiar? This is just the beginning of this. We're only halfway through the season. We got a whole another 80-plus games of this. This thing is getting ugly already. And this is only the beginning. This is New York. You think they're going to lighten up as a team, careens towards 95 losses? This is only going to get worse. David Stearns, I said, when he let P. Alonso and Nimmo and all those guys go, I said, he better be careful. Because if this doesn't work out, he's setting himself up to be the Nico Harrison of New York City. Where he becomes persona non grata, where he can't show his face. The Mets were not a great team. Clearly, they didn't make the playoffs last year. And I was all for a shift in the direction of where the team was going. But if you're going to make that shift, you better make moves that are more sure things. You better make the decisions that he made to shift gears from the nucleus that they had that I thought was rotten and was no good, they all flopped. They all were a complete flop. And now I'm looking at a president where I think he'll get the offseason to fix this. And I think he is very lucky the Knicks won a championship. Let me be clear. If the Knicks had lost in the NBA Finals or lost at some point in the playoffs and we had to turn back to this Mets disaster, I haven't even fully tapped in again because I'm just like, I can't do it. Knicks thing was too good. Obviously I'm doing a lot of stuff doing the NBA draft stuff. By the way, I'll be on the Fan next week. Actually on July 4th, which is going to be really fun. So Independence Day, EJ show on the Fan. We'll be talking plenty of Mets stuff. So I'll certainly be diving in more so next week because I'll be getting ready for that show. But he's lucky the Knicks won a championship. Because if you didn't have half of the city that represents probably Mets fans, maybe a little less than half, still euphoric over the fact that the Knicks, completed, ended a 53-year championship drought, and they brought a championship back to New York City for one of our, 4 major men's sports leagues. It will be much worse. The fever pitch, it's gonna get loud, it's gonna get crazy again. So, but I actually think he got bailed out by the fact that the Knicks won a championship. I think even this rest of the summer that's going to be rough and lousy to watch and tough to stomach. I think that is going to be not as, the vitriol is not going to be quite as intense as it would have been had the Knicks not won a title. But it's going to be there. And as we get to the offseason and whatever the season ends up being, the calls for his firing are already happening. I think he will get the regular season and I think one off season to fix this. I think he's going to get one off season. But we're about to see how much Steve Cohen, can be impacted by fan sentiment and media sentiment. Because it is all bad, all negative. There is no silver lining to anything that's happening with this Mets team right now. How much he's going to be willing to stomach that, how much he's going to want to sit in the fire, stand by this guy that he waited years to bring in because he felt like this was a perfect guy to reshape the Mets organization. How much of a stomach does he have for this to stick with him through all of the nonsense of this season that's going to be? Because this is going to be ugly. I mean, the fact that Juan Soto has 17 home runs and is hitting 300, is putting together a great season. The guy has a 966 OPS. And the team is 13 games below 500. It's crazy. And it creates real questions about, again, the direction of the team and where they go from here. I mean, I don't think they're trading Juan Soto. I don't think they're trading Francisco Lindor. But again, I think a lot of tough conversations are all on the table now in terms of like how much of a push does this team have to go in terms of like where this group is headed. Because this is a team that's not even close to competing for a championship. Right now, they're not even close to competing for a playoff spot. They're last place. Last place. I mean, it's insane. Like, the Mets are, again, a $330 million payroll, and they're sitting in last place behind the Nationals and the Marlins. The Marlins are actually pretty good. Nationals are pretty good. Nationals are a 400 or 500 team. This is a pathetic showing. Absolutely pathetic showing. One of the worst Mets seasons I could remember. And it looks like it's going to be a very long summer. And what we're seeing from David Stearns is the origin story of potentially one of the biggest New York sports villains that we've had in a long time. Let's wrap the show with this. It's been a fun one. 40 days and counting. Streaming live. Multiple spots. Not on X today. I don't know why. I think I know why, and I'm like once again annoyed at the fact that I'm not even getting to why. It's not really my fault, but it is. It won't be. I think we'll have a fine. I think it's once again the intro. The X, I guess, copyright people have found the show and decided that I'm the one they want to crack down on, I suppose. So I'll adjust that and we'll get back to it. So whatever. But anyway, still streaming live multiple spots. We're on YouTube, New Generation Media. We're typically on X, EJ_Stewart, though not today because X cut off the feed. We are live on Instagram, Action EJ. Shout out to people that have found me on Instagram today. Let's see who joined in today. We had Jonathan BX305. We had Boosie Anderson. My guy Nick Theodoro. Shout out to Nick. Lamar Jackson 75 and Mass 1505 who always joins in at a certain point. Thank you all for checking me out on Instagram today. Greatly appreciate y'all. And we're live on Buzzer as well. Live on Buzzer. Search first of all, sign up for Buzzer if you haven't. Buzzer.com or download the Buzzer app. And it's free to download, free to join. And make sure you follow me on there. EJ205 Prep is where you'll find me on Buzzer. Really fascinated by what is continuing to be the reaction to the Mitchell Robinson tweet I had, which is so interesting. It's funny. I'm perfectly fine with being in the position of being someone who talks Knicks and then people have opinions about it. But people are really mad about this tweet. They don't really, and this I'll actually see if I can show you the tweet. It's pretty much what I said on the show, so it's not like it's much different. But it's gotten. As I said, as the title high wears off, the looming eggs of Mitch Robinson puts a highly uncomfortable question back on the table, which is what I said earlier in the show. Who is making the basketball decisions over at the Knicks? Because not going to second apron to keep a championship team together makes no sense. And I want to be 100% clear again. This is the position of Leon Rose in the front office, according to reporters. Like, and I'm getting a lot of heat for it, and people are coming, and I'm fine with it. I'm not like, whatever. It's opinion, whatever, And reasonable minds can disagree. But my view on this is not different from what the Knicks would want to do. If the Knicks were owned by a different team, or owned by somebody who was willing to go in second apron, all the indications are that they would go into the second apron to, at the very least, re-sign Mitchell Robinson. That is all the indication we've gotten. We've not gotten indication otherwise that Leon Rose in the front office is in favor or in support of where the team is going in terms of this direction. And yet, there's been a lot of, again, pushback on this notion from me and others that not doing so is somehow is somehow not a mistake, And listen, I think that there are fair points being made. Like, I'm reading this tweet from Anthony Raya. I'm probably, apologies if I don't get your last name right. So you have to be careful who you go into second apron for. The Knicks can push back their apron near eight back. I think he had a typo here. The Knicks can push back their 2 apron years when the Brunson exemption kicks in and the looming CBA opt out. Pushing it back a year means you may have a harsh repeat offenders for year 3. So I mean, I get some of the conversation about, again, when you're going to go into the apron, how you go into the apron. I just feel like there's no better time to me to go into the second apron than winning a championship, because you have a proof of concept of the team that you have put together has the wherewithal and the potential to run it back and win it all again. There's no reason why you can't. Now, we have seen teams that have not done that. Part of the reason some of those teams have not done that has been because they didn't go into the second apron. Like, that's, I hate when it's, all these teams didn't repeat. It's like, yeah, well, the Nuggets didn't repeat because they didn't, in part because they didn't bring back some of the guys on their depth pieces. They didn't bring back Bruce Brown, which was a huge loss for them. They brought him back years later when he was washed, and we see now that didn't work out. Other people saying, oh, he's a backup, so it doesn't matter. Again, people saying it's a ton of sense. And some guys saying this is the engagement you're looking for. I mean, whatever. I hate that. I hate that. I hate giving an opinion, again, that is actually the team's opinion. Somehow is me engagement farming is crazy. Again, some of these restrictions: no mid-level exception, no sign and trade, no buyout, no salary matching, aggregation, and there's also drafting penalties. Again, what I will say is these are things that happen if you stay in the second apron. The Cavs, again, right now, they played a whole season in the second apron. And what they are doing right now is they are maneuvering, which is why James Harden opted out of his contract. They are maneuvering their salaries so that they can dip back under the second apron so that they can have all these things together. It's not about being in the second apron saying, oh, now these penalties are here forever. They're there forever as long as you don't stay in there. As long as you decide, hey, listen, regardless of what happens, I'm not moving. I think that the Knicks coming into this year with a nucleus that is not old, but a nucleus that is in the prime of their career, I think stripping away resources from that nucleus while they're in the prime of their career because of a future where they're going to be not, I don't really think makes much sense to me. Like, that's I think maybe where the difference lies on some people who disagree with this sentiment is right now, Jalen Brunson is never going to be better than he is right now. Karl-Anthony Towns is never going to be better than he is right now. Mikal Bridges, OG, I'll maybe set aside OG because it seems like maybe he is the one guy that maybe can continue to improve. But the Nova Knicks and Karl-Anthony Towns are not going to be better than they were this year. So the decision you have in front of you is, do you want to maximize your depth, your ability to compete while they're at their best? Or do you want to have more flexibility to maneuver around those guys when they begin to decline? F the future for me. That's how I'm at. Like, I know where the team is right now. I prefer to work where the team is right now and improve the team where we can right now, rather than say, let's gut the team. Gut the team may be harsh, but limit the depth on the team and try to figure piecemeal together the rest of this team and make those guys win without, again, all of the horses. Because Mitchell Robinson is only the beginning. Again, who's to say Landry Shaman's going to be back with the fact that they're trying to stay under the apron? Who's to say Jose Alvarado is going to be back? But these are all big questions. We don't know the answer to these questions. So, I mean, it's funny to me, again, just to see how many people are just really angry with this tweet. Like, I don't know. It's so funny to me. But we'll see. We'll see how it goes. And I may be wrong. But that's kind of how I view it right now. Let's finish up the show. Away from sports. but something that is near and dear to my heart, and that is Supergirl. I'm looking at the reception to DC Supergirl, which comes out in theaters. Well, it's out in theaters. Came out yesterday, and it's out in all theaters today. It is a movie that is being maligned. I mean, there's no other way to describe this. I'm trying to let me see if I can find the what's it called? The Rotten Tomatoes score. When last I checked, I saw it's 58, which is not good. I can't imagine it's gotten better, but maybe it has. We'll see. This is not a movie I've seen, by the way. This is a movie I'll probably see in the either today or next few days. Right now, I'm seeing a 59 Rotten Tomatoes score. I'm seeing a 77%. That's a critic score. 77% when it comes to audience acclaim. I think audience acclaim for superhero movies, it depends on the movie, but tends to lean more favorably to superhero movies for the most part. It's like the worse the movie, sometimes the better the audience score. I think there's just a reactionary thing to like sometimes want to combat what critics think. I've not seen this movie. I'm not trying to have any of this influence at all what I view of it. And when I do the show next week, I likely will probably talk a little bit about Supergirl once I see it. What I will say is almost regardless of what I think about the movie, and I say almost because I leave some wiggle room, but almost regardless of what I think about this movie, this is a bad sign. This is highly concerning, and this is something that I think should be troublesome to James Gunn and to DC. Because I think what we know James Gunn to be is an excellent director and someone who himself is a very good screenwriter. We've seen him write the Guardians of the Galaxy movies. We've seen him write Superman. We've seen him write the Suicide Squad. We've seen him write the Creature Commandos. We've seen him write, Peacemaker. All projects that most people enjoy, most critics enjoy. What we have not seen quite yet is what is James Gunn like in putting other people in place to create, and him being the head honcho signing off on things. Because this is somebody who, and maybe a slight dig to Marvel, was very much standing on business in the idea of, well, I'm the kind of guy that I only sign off on scripts when they're ready to be made. No movie's going to be greenlit unless the script is A1. Like, this is the things that he was saying. Not things that I was saying, not things that critics were saying, not things people defended. This is stuff that he put out there himself. And to be clear, like, Marvel's plots in some of these movies of late have suffered. Not all of them. I think some of the Marvel's washed narratives, some of it has been heavy-handed, but some of it's been true. And a lot of it's been because it seems like the plots and the script writing for this stuff just, it wasn't up to snuff. Like, you know, Secret Invasion is something that clearly shouldn't have been made. You know, The Marvels was a movie that, you know, had script issues that feels like, you know, that should have been worked out more on the cutting edge floor before they ended up trying to just go ahead with that. So people welcome that thought process, but I don't understand the notion that you come into a movie where you make this movie, he falls in love with the script. No one else has seen it. And then the scriptwriter who wrote Supergirl, because he's so in love with the script, decides, you know what, I'm going to go and put you on the new Wonder Woman movie. When you've not seen any reception to what happened with this movie. Like Anna Noguera, who we talked about last week, maybe earlier this week, I forgot when we talked about it. She is a scriptwriter for Supergirl. I've not seen this movie, but the reception has not been great. It's been mixed at best. Anna Noguera is also being tapped right now to write a script for Wonder Woman. James Gunn liked this script for Supergirl that other people are having issues with. We don't know what James Gunn is like in terms of signing the right people to write movies or direct movies. Because even the small sample size we have of the DCU has been all James Gunn stuff. Creature Commandos is James Gunn. Peacemaker is James Gunn. Superman is James Gunn. This is really the first movie outside the James Gunn lens that we've seen, and right now it's getting kind of panned. That is something that I think if you're a fan of comic book movies, I think is noteworthy, and I think is concerning because so much of what was supposed to be the strength of DC was that they were going to make sure stories were A1, even if they were doing stories for characters that maybe shouldn't take preference over some characters. Like, people are like, why are we doing Supergirl instead of Batman? Or why are we doing Supergirl instead of Wonder Woman? Like, why are these movies, and Supergirl's a big DC character. I'd say she's B-list. I wouldn't say she's A-list, but I think B-list is fair. But going to Supergirl, it is jumping the gun ahead of other characters who certainly would be more recognizable. The Flash, Batman, Wonder Woman, easy top 3 people ahead of Supergirl. Obviously, there already was a Superman movie. When I argue Green Lantern, I can certainly make a case for Green Lantern. I can make a case for, again, a couple of other characters. But easy, those 3. I can make a case for Aquaman, right? Like, there's a case to be made talking about most recognizable, most recognizable superheroes or superheroes with where the audiences have the most knowledge about them. They jumped the gun to go to Supergirl next instead of Superman. There's some synergy that makes some sense because obviously you're dealing still in the world of Superman, in the world of Kryptonians, and it's not like it's the craziest thing in the world. It's not like you said you jumped the gun to go to Booster Gold or Elongated Man. But you are jumping the gun. And you did it in part because you said, well, but this script is awesome. This script is amazing. And then the movie comes out and this is a reception. It does make you wonder, like, okay, are we wasting time? Like, we're having a Clayface movie come out before we're getting, again, and Clayface is not even B-list when it comes to DC heroes. DC characters, rather. Of course, he's not really a hero. But, like, Clayface is not even B-list. And we're doing a Clayface movie. We've had a Creatures Commander show. We've done Peacemaker for another season. Like, these are all projects that this is all, I'm kind of echoing a lot of the sentiments that Kendall, who, when if you listen to our Hero Talk podcast, New Generation Hero Talk, he talked about this a ton. These are characters that we're not really clamoring necessarily to see on the big screen, but they're being pushed in part because James Gunn is falling in love with these stories. Are the stories really like that? I think it's a fair question to ask. And the early mixed reception of Supergirl doesn't make this feel good at this point, especially again when these are the kind of Anna Naguara. Again, I've not seen this movie. Maybe I'll see it and I'll like it. But again, it kind of doesn't matter. When I talk about the future of comic book movies in DC in a more macro way, like I try to sometimes remove myself from things because that was one of my biggest frustrations in talking about the Zack Snyder era of DC was there were like these Snyder fans who some of them I think were just doing it for a bit at a certain point, but definitely some fans who just they actually legitimately like the movies, and like some of them could not like see outside of like their view of those movies. Like they couldn't, like, regardless of whatever defense you want to have for why Batman was killing people, why he was 50, why a 4-hour Snyder cut version should have just been the version they continued moving forward, why Man of Steel was good, like, or, why Superman killing Zod was what made sense. Like, they couldn't see past that. It was like, regardless of whether or not you like it and you see past it, when we're talking about money making, we're talking about the future viability of a franchise, these decisions don't help the cause of keeping this franchise viable. You can keep fighting with people on the internet or fighting with critics to try to make them like this content, but if they don't, they don't. It's a false fight. And it's a fight that, I'm someone who's defended James Gunn, but it's not a fight I'm going to have. I will, like, if the movie's good, I will defend the movie and say, hey, listen, I like this movie. I think it was really good. I don't know. I don't know what's going to happen. I got to watch it. But I'm not going to take that fight that the Snyder fans had where it's like, oh, well, like, you guys are just wrong. It's the critics and the fans who are wrong, and we're the ones that are right. It's like, no, the customer's always right. And in many ways, the critics end up deciding, critics and the fans, in large part, get to decide what movies get to continue to keep getting made. That's just the truth. So, I'm very fascinated now by these reviews, this mixed reception. Like, I said from the beginning, like, the Supergirl story that they were adopting is an excellent comic book written by Tom King. It is an unorthodox book. It's unorthodox. It's an unorthodox book in the sense that it's unorthodox to try to adapt that as a movie. it can be done, and it can be visually stunning. And there's aspects of it I'm like, man, that could be really cool. But like, just I don't want to get any spoilers because I don't know the plot of this movie. I haven't been spoiled in that way. I just know the plot of the actual books. I read the book. Like, so I want to get into spoilers, but like just the storytelling mechanisms and how they approach things. It's a fast-moving story that sometimes is even hard to follow in the books because you're moving to, we see in the trailers that, you're traveling a lot throughout the galaxy. So a lot of world building, a lot of, it's a lot of things to follow. It's not the easiest story to adapt. So seeing that there were maybe troubles in adapting this story, again, we go back to the decision-making from James Gunn. Like, he loved this book. He wanted this to be the direction. He tapped Anna Nagara to do this. He loved this script, and this is, again, the fact that the reception was this bad is troublesome. Now I will say, I want to, the obvious disclaimer. Listen, are there knuckleheads and losers and morons who are simply just using Supergirl and Millie Alcock as a culture war trophy to run around and be like, see, this is why you can't have women doing this? Like, those guys, it sucks that they're a part of this. I saw someone who, one of the movie critics who wrote about this said it really sucks to be, I want to like this movie, and it sucks to be someone who didn't like this movie because, like, now you're kind of roped in with these assholes. And it's the nature of just 2026. It's funny. It's the same thing. I saw something that we didn't talk about on the show. I actually kind of forgot to bring it up. I didn't really bring it up because I didn't even want to get into this mess. But it's the same thing with the Caitlin Clark stuff. Like by Alyssa Thomas, flagrant foul. Caitlin Clark wasn't called on the court. They ended up suspending her. But and it was an obvious flagrant foul. They obviously missed it. There's been nonsense going on with the physicality in the WNBA that's continuing that they have not fixed though. But any time Caitlin Clark takes a flagrant foul or whatever, it becomes this referendum on black women, on women's sports, on the straight people. It becomes something that is so over the top and so unnecessary and so just kind of unsavory overall that even someone can watch that play, be like, that was a flagrant foul. What the hell is going on? What's wrong with these refs? But you can't not also have the other element to it that is toxic and gross. That's just an aspect of it that you can't avoid. And unfortunately, that's also kind of, I feel like, what you're seeing a little bit with the Supergirl thing is it's this thing of, well, it's, oh, this is, again, that's what DC gets for trying to be woke and whatever. It's like, the movie just may not be good. It just may not be good. It may have been bad if it was a man. It may have been bad regardless of whatever Millie Alcock said lead up. None of that has anything to do with why the movie was bad. It just was bad. We've seen female-led movies do extremely well. We saw Captain Marvel do well. We saw Wonder Woman do well. We're past that. You're an idiot to keep bringing that up as a reason why Supergirl wasn't good. It may have just been a bad script, which again comes with it. I'm not naive enough to not think that there isn't some level of misogyny that's coming with some of the critique and some of the heavy-handedness. But I'm just looking at this, and it is concerning to see respected people who wouldn't come from that lens of viewing Supergirl saying, sorry guys, this ain't it. I'm not one of those guys. I'm not trying to be anti-woke. I'm not trying to do any of that stuff. I watched the movie, it just ain't it. And again, that part of it is a little bit concerning. That's a good place to leave it, man. I want to thank y'all so much for checking out this edition of 40 Days and Counting, streaming live multiple spots. Again, apologies. Oops, sorry, didn't mean to hit that. Apologies to the folks who watch me on X. I believe this will be something I'll be able to fix again, but it's annoying that this continues to keep happening. I thought we were past this, but again, the X copyright police are after me apparently. I don't know what's going on. I don't even want to get into what's going on, but I'm sure it's something with the intro. If it's not, then maybe there's a bigger issue, but I'll try to get to the bottom of it. But we still had it fun on multiple other platforms. We were on YouTube. Make sure you subscribe to New Generation Media. While you're there, make sure you do me a favor. Hit the like button while you're at it. That helps a ton. Helps with engagement. Helps with helping make the channel grow. Also, even after this video is over, give a comment in the comment section. What do you think about the future of Mitchell Robinson? What do you think about the future of the Timberwolves after trading for LaMelo Ball? The Mets, are they cooked? Should David Stearns be fired? I want to hear it all. Leave a comment in the comment section. Let me know what you thought about this. Let me know what you think about Supergirl if you've seen it. I'd love to know your views on what you think of Supergirl. And so make sure you help us out there. Also, be sure to follow us on Instagram. Follow me, ActionEJ. That's where we're streaming live right now as well. Make sure y'all follow our Instagram account, New Generation Podcast. And make sure you follow the podcast. All episodes of 40 Days of Counting get posted to the podcast network. Search New Generation Podcast Network wherever you get your podcasts. Apple Podcasts, Spotify, SoundCloud, Stitcher, TuneIn, whatever you get your podcasts. Search New Generation, NU Generation Podcast Network. And you'll find all episodes of 40 Days and Counting. While you're there, also, do me a favor. 5-star review will help a ton. If you can, a written review also will help a ton. Also, subscribing would help. And hit the auto download feature. Do all those things. That will help your boy a ton. We would greatly appreciate it. And I think that's about going to do it. I want to thank you guys for checking out this edition of 40 Days and Counting. We'll be back next Tuesday with a new episode of 40 Days and Counting. Thank you guys so much for checking me out. Again, follow me on X, EJ_Stewart. Follow me on Instagram and TikTok, @EJ. I will see you guys in a week. Take it easy.